The frost clung stubbornly to the fence posts, glinting in the first faint rays of dawn when Ethan Marsh stepped out of his creaking farmhouse. The air smelled of damp earth and old wood, the kind that wraps around your chest and never really lets go. Winter had arrived earlier than usual this year, painting the landscape in muted whites and grays. The pastures, usually alive with the lowing of cattle and the snorts of horses, were quiet, frost-covered, and brittle underfoot. He had expected the ordinary routine: feeding the horses, patching the barn roof, and maybe driving into town for supplies he could barely afford. But the moment he stepped onto the worn path of his pasture, he froze. A figure stood at the edge of his land, immense and trembling, limping slightly as if the ground itself resisted his steps. Even before the sun fully rose, Ethan could make out the details. The giant's armor was battered, his hands scarred, and his shoulders sagging with exhaustion. His chest heaved, each breath a struggle, and his massive boots left deep impressions in the frozen earth. "Sir," the voice rumbled, deep and low, like distant thunder rolling across a valley. "I seek help." Ethan blinked. Giants weren't supposed to exist. They belonged in myths and bedtime stories, tales his father had whispered to him on cold nights. And yet, here he was, leaning heavily on a colossal sword, injured, alone, and staring directly at him. For a long moment, Ethan didn't move. Fear prickled in the back of his neck, but beneath it there was also something deeper, a stirring of compassion. He had grown up on this farm, used to the struggles of living close to the earth, to scarcity, to the rawness of life that tested both patience and resolve. He knew suffering, recognized it immediately, and there it was in front of him, impossible to ignore. "What happened to you?" Ethan asked cautiously, inching closer. The giant sank to one knee, groaning as his weight pressed on the injured leg. "I am Branos, warrior of the North Range. I defended my people, but I was ambushed. Wounded. I did not mean to trespass, but I could walk no farther." Ethan's heart tightened. His farm had never been called safe. It was old, neglected, barely able to stand against the harsh winters. Yet somehow, this wounded giant had found it. "Come inside," Ethan said before fear could talk him out of it. Branos's eyes widened in surprise. "You would help me?" "I don't leave anyone suffering," Ethan said simply. "Human or giant." It took Branos nearly 5 minutes to get through the oversized barn doors. Ethan's barn was the only structure even remotely large enough to host someone of his size. The straw rustled under his massive weight, and each movement caused groans from both wood and giant. Ethan moved quietly, gathering boiled water, cloth, and herbs. He wasn't a healer, but memories of his father's teachings guided his hands. When he pressed the poultice to Branos's wound, the giant flinched, then settled. "You have a steady hand," Branos said quietly. "My father taught me. He said kindness is worth nothing if you aren't willing to get your hands dirty." Branos let out a low rumble that might have been a laugh. Wise words. Hours passed. Ethan learned Branos's story. Ambushed while escorting families through the dangerous canyons, fighting off attackers at great cost, refusing to burden his people with his own injuries. The wounds he carried were more than physical. His body bore the scars of battles fought in silence, the burden of responsibility that weighed heavier than any armor. "You should have stayed with them," Ethan said. "My people need hope," Branos replied. "A limping warrior brings only fear." Something about those words struck a chord in Ethan. He understood pretending to be okay, hiding pain so others weren't burdened, all too well. His farm was drowning in debt, his family legacy slipping away, but he told no one. Each day was a struggle, yet he bore it silently, out of pride and perhaps fear. By nightfall, Branos slept, his breathing shallow but steadier. Ethan leaned against a post, exhausted yet strangely fulfilled. The farm was cold, but warmth filled the barn, not just from the lanterns, but from something more profound, the sense that he was exactly where he needed to be. The next morning, Branos tried to stand. "Easy," Ethan said, instinctively reaching out. His arm was barely the size of one of Branos's fingers. "I must move on," Branos insisted. "You can barely walk," Ethan countered. Branos gritted his teeth. "I will crawl if I must." "No," Ethan said firmly. "Take my horse." Branos froze. "Your horse? She's strong, steady, faster than walking, especially for someone with a wounded leg," Ethan said. "Take her. Go home safely." Branos's eyes glimmered with disbelief and gratitude. Your horse is the most valuable thing you own. Maybe, Ethan admitted. But value doesn't matter if someone needs it more. Branos bowed his massive head. Ethan Marsh, you give what you cannot spare. No warrior forgets such sacrifice. Ethan shrugged awkwardly. Just get home safe. Carefully, Branos mounted Marlowe, the horse surprisingly calm under him. With slow, deliberate steps, he began his journey toward the horizon. Ethan watched until he was gone, a quiet mixture of emptiness and satisfaction settling over him. 3 days passed in solitude. He mended the fences, fed the animals, and repaired the roof again, each task feeling heavier without Branos nearby. The farm felt emptier, yet Ethan sensed something profound had shifted within him, a deeper understanding of generosity and courage. And then, on the morning of the 4th day, the ground shook. Ethan ran outside, heart hammering, expecting a storm or an earthquake. Instead, he saw the impossible. Branos had returned, upright and uninjured, towering over the fields, flanked by half a dozen armored giants. And in their hands, chests overflowing with gold, coins glinting in the early morning light. Ethan Marsh. Branos roared warmly. Friend of the North Range. We bring the gratitude of our people. What is all this? Ethan stammered. Payment, Branos said simply. For your kindness. For your courage. For the horse you gave without hesitation. Ethan shook his head. I didn't expect anything. That, Branos said, kneeling in the dirt, is why you deserve everything. The giants carefully unloaded chest after chest into the barn. Gold coins, precious stones, artifacts older than the oldest stories Ethan had ever heard. I can't, my barn isn't a bank, Ethan protested. Branos laughed. It is now. A vault worthy of a man whose heart outweighs gold. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Thank you, he whispered. No, Ethan Marsh. Thank you, Branos replied, smiling. Your kindness saved a warrior. And now, your life can be touched by it too. Word spread, but not of gold or giants. People came to the farm to see the man who gave without expecting, who helped without hesitation, and whose heart had moved the world. Ethan rebuilt the farm, bought tools, repaired the roof, expanded the fields. But more than wealth, he gave. Grain to neighbors, repairs to broken homes, care to anyone in need. The barn remained a vault of gold, but also a symbol of generosity, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could create the largest ripples. He began keeping journals, writing the story of Branos and the courage it inspired. Children listened wide-eyed as he spoke, learning that bravery was not always about strength or size, it was about heart. Every sunrise, as light spilled over his peaceful farm, Ethan remembered the limping giant, the moment he had chosen compassion over caution. And he smiled, knowing that in giving, he had received something far greater than gold, a proof that humanity, at its best, could move mountains, even giants.